Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I've been asked to do a video about things that can go wrong with roses. Now, one of the problems that some people seem to be having is that as they describe, their roses look like cabbages. Now the problem with that is it's getting your centre too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you down to my board, and then I'm going to show you some of the things that you can do when you're making roses, depending on what size you wanted and things that you can use. So we'll take you down. Right, now then, I've got a few different centres here, things that you can use to make your roses. Hang on a minute, got some more over here. Now these here in the middle here, these are all, well, from one particular firm, sorry, not that one. These are called cell buds from Cell Crafts. Now if you're in the UK, then you should be able to get a hold of these, either by getting them from your sugar craft shop if they sell these, or directly from Cell Crafts. Now there are, in the buds, there are actually, if I get those into order, 4 different sizes. Where's my other one, the larger one? There we are. This is the larger one here. I don't often use this for doing, these would be used for doing life-size roses, but sometimes I think they can be a bit too big. So if you're unsure, then go down a size, and this one is, if I give you the numbers on, that's cell bud 4, and you get half a dozen of those in a pack. That is the largest one. But for doing life-size roses, I tend to go for the, hang on, when I find my packet. Can't find the packet. So these are cell bud 3, then this one is cell buds 2, and then this is cell bud 1. You would use this one if you're going to do like where you make your own centres for your roses, although my centres for my roses tend to be slightly smaller. It depends on how you're doing your roses. Now rose petal cutters come in a variety of different colours. Just get those out of the way. The advantage with doing the ones with the sugar paste, it doesn't matter whether it's tatty, whether it's cracked or whatever, it's going to be all covered, is that. So that doesn't really matter. But the one advantage with doing your roses this way is that you can use up any old bits of paste that you've got, because we all know when you make particularly roses or any other flower, you end up with paste left over. What do you do with it? You probably end up throwing it away after a period of time because you haven't used that colour again or something like that. Make some rose centres with it, because people get asked to make a lot of roses for whatever thing they're doing. Now the thing to do now is, the next important thing, when I find where I put my cutters, I did get them all out somewhere. Just bear with me a second. Got myself disorganised again here. I thought I had everything all organised. Just bear with me a sec, I'll come back in a sec. Right, I'm back again. So as you can see by all these that I've laid out here, there's lots of different types of rose petal cutters on the market, depending on which kind of cutter you want to use. But what I'm going to do to you today is just explain some of the ground rules, shall we put it, for making roses, to make sure that your base of your rose isn't too big. You need to keep it near enough the size that you started off with at the base of your cone, this part here. So one tip is to make sure that you roll your paste as thinly as you can get it. Now I've got some paste here that I'm working with at the moment. When I find where I put it, we'll use some of this here. This is the flexible paste that I've done in a previous video. So I'm going to, no it's not, wrong one. That's the one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you where you need to start on your centres to make your roses the right size. But while I'm just needing this to get this so that I can use it, I'll explain about, I've got these all-in-one cutters here as well, because that's another question that I was asked about all-in-one roses. Now, if you were going to do a life-size rose, I would use this set. And the thing is, what you need to do is think about the size of your cutters that you normally use when you're using the individual cutters. And so what you would do is, for your first layer, is start off with the smallest cutter. So it depends on whether you're doing the smaller roses like these for putting in the spray on a cake when you're doing a load of roses, or if you're going to do a specimen rose, then you would use this set here. Sorry, I've got them right under my camera. Just move that up a little bit more so you can see what I'm talking about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to start a rose off, and then I'm going to do an all-in-one rose showing you how to use these type of cutters. Now, something that you need to remember, and this is another rule you need to do, because I noticed a lot of people are using these poly buds rather than making their own. When you're making a rose using the poly buds, put your first couple of layers onto your bud and let it dry. Because if you don't, particularly when you come to, like I do, turn them upside down to get your petals in the right place, it can slide off of the bud if you don't let it dry and make sure that it's stuck to your poly bud. If you're using the your own made ones made with the sugar paste, you don't have that problem, and you also don't have that problem with the all-in-one cutters because it covers the base of the rose. Another thing to think about as well is if you're doing a bud, it might be a good idea to think about covering the base of your centre in a very thin layer of the colour that you're going to finish with. So just so that when because you're not going to come right down your bud with your petals, which I'll explain in a minute when we get to doing one of the flowers there. You're going to just have your calyx at the bottom. If you're doing a bud, sometimes it doesn't cover all the paste. So if you cover the bottom, then you don't have the white bit showing through, or whatever colour you've made your bud of. Because, as I say, you can use any colour you want. It's not going to be seen. So just think about that when you're making your roses. Now, just get those out of the way for a minute. Now, the first thing to think about is, if I was making a normal rose to go on a cake, then I probably would use these two cutters. I haven't got all my cutters here. There's actually one missing. I probably would start with the bottom one. I couldn't find all of my cutters, so because I've that many cutters to go through, it's ridiculous. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by rolling a bit of this paste out. Now the trick is, another thing to stop your bottoms from getting too thick, is to make sure you roll your paste really thin. These are roses. I'm just going to turn that around that way so I've got a bit more room. Normally don't do that. Once I get it on the board, I leave it on, but because I've got all these things out for you to see, they're taking up a little bit more room than I would normally have. So get your paste as thin as you can. It's not going to be self-supporting or anything like that. We're not doing any grooves in it or anything like that, so you can get it really thin. The only time you need to roll your paste a little bit, allow it to be a bit thicker, is when you're doing leaves. Again, not too thick. Or if you're doing something like a lily or an orchid, which is sturdier, they have thicker petals and they're more waxy looking. With things like roses and that, they have very, very fine petals, and you've got to think about the bulk as well at the bottom when you're building it up. So I'm going to use that this is actually a leaf cutter, but I can use the other side of this. So what I'm going to do is, when you do your centre, put it into the bottom of your cutter like that, and make sure that you've got at least that amount of space above your cutter. So really it wants to be probably no more than 2/3 of the size of your cutter. That's the base of the cutter there, so I've put it on the bottom there. You want to your bud, your centre, to be about 2/3 of the size of the cutter that you're going to use. You could do it that way if you wanted, if you find that easier like that. But obviously you're going to be that way, although I did get some of my students doing the petals that way up and creating a new kind of rose that we've never seen before. But anybody that's watching that are any of my ex-customers will know what I mean. So I'm going to start off by cutting out 2 petals. Now this is if you're going to do a spray of roses, a small rose, using a small centre. So again, onto your pad. You probably won't be able to see this because there's been a where's my yellow? I'll use the yellow pad. Then you can see what I'm doing. If I get that off of there onto there. Whoops. Stuck to my fingers. There we are, like that. And then I'm going to get my medium ball tool and thin the edges. I'm doing this upside down so you can see what I'm doing. Always start from the centre and go down each side rather than trying to go around. That's when people miss the edge of the petals and end up drifting in. Right, so once you've done that, you can turn that over and then get your glue. The first one I'm going to glue all over. Some bits don't need the glue on, but if you don't do this, then you might find that it might not stick in areas. At least you know you've got glue. Now put your bud in so you've got probably at least 1/3 of your petal up above the bud. So if I turn it over and I bring that round, bring it right round as far as you can get it, and then bring it back round the other way. Now this is just if you're doing a quick rose. If you're doing a more life-size rose, then you're going to do more petals than this. More layers, I should say. So this time I'm going to glue about 2/3 of the petal, and then I know I've shown this in other videos, but we're just recapping here just to show you the reason why you can get them too thick at the bottom. Then that bud, that goes round there like that. Bring that round to meet. Now at that stage, this is why you need to cover the bottom in the same colour that you're going to use. You could leave that as just the bud. So if we go on to the next layer, move that glue out of the way. I've got to put some more fat on there. I don't think I've got enough on it. I know I keep repeating myself, but you're better off using white fat to roll out on rather than powder, because any kind of powder, icing sugar, corn flour or anything like that will dry your paste out. Although with this flexible paste it's not too bad. It does stay flexible a lot longer and it's a lot softer to use as well. It's not as firm as your normal flour paste. So again, get it as thin as you can. The thinner you can get it, the better. And you can tell how thin it is by just rubbing your hands over. You can tell if it's thick because it feels thick. I know it's easy for me to say on camera, but when you're doing it in reality, just try it when you're rolling it out. Rub your fingers over when it's quite thick to see how that feels. And then when you get it thinner, at each stage of your rolling out, just check your purse and rub your hands over it just to see how it feels. Now with the same size cutter, I'm going to cut out 3 petals. get rid of that. Get my palette knife to pick these up this time. Onto my pad. Now, I'm not going to go any further with this when I've done, because I think it's sort of self-explanatory why I'm doing it at the top, because I'm not here to do a full rose demonstration here. So we'll just put this layer on. Now, if you're using a polybud like those there, I would stop at this stage and let that dry. This pad I'm using here, by the way, is this is a cell pad. They are quite expensive, but they're really firm. The only thing with these is when it comes to cleaning them, do not put them in the washer like you can do with these kind of pads, because they have, if I just take those petals off of there just for now and show you the other side. And in my next video I'm going to do a lilac, so I will explain about the holes and why we use that. They've got a firm side that you can roll out on these, so if you put these in the washer that disappears, so then you're just back to a foam pad. Right, so get back to our rose again. I'll just put that underneath so you can see what I'm doing, because it's easier to see against a yellow background. So what I'm going to do is put these back onto here. Just straighten that, curve the petal back a little bit there. So this time I'm just going to glue half of the petal. Some people just glue down the side, but I think if you glue the centre as well, it's a lot firmer. I mean, once you're experienced at doing it, you can probably get away with doing things like that, because you'll see, watching other people's videos, that everybody has different ways of doing these things. So I'll just get that onto there, like that. I need this side to be loose because we're going to tuck the last petal underneath that. You need to be more or less at the same level when you're doing this to make it so it's a fairly tight centre. And looking at this cutter, I think I've squashed that one as well, so it might not go around quite as far as I wanted it to go. I'm just going to not overlap that quite as much on that one. Tuck that in and bring your other one round. Neaten that all round. And as I say, on a polybud, I would leave it at that stage now, because you're going to put another 3 petals on. But bear in mind that whatever you put on there when you're using these polybuds, you're adding more weight onto it. And what happens is, when you get to the stage where you need to put it upside down to hold your petals in place when they're more loosely based, the whole lot just slides off. I've done it. I forget sometimes doing it, so that's something to remember. So what you need to do now is to put that to one side to dry. Now, we'll get onto these. I'm going to do it with the smaller one to demonstrate this, to show you why you've got all these different sizes in there. You're not just going to use one. When I first started, I thought you just use one, because I bought the Orchard product ones, which you could buy individually, and then I was finding that the centre was higher up than the rest of the rows and everything, so that didn't work. I think I'll use all that paste, roll all that out. We'll just move all those up there. Now, you're still going to do similar sort of things with your rose, but you don't use as many cuts of paste with this. And it depends on how big you want your rose to be as to how far you're going to go. I should have some styrofoam somewhere, and I don't know what I've done with it, so we might have to just improvise a little bit here. So get my paste on there. Because I'm doing this fairly quickly, I'm going to cut all my pieces out in one if I can get them all out. It depends on how far I get with this paste, how big I can get it. Now obviously, when you're doing an all-in-one rose, you can't do the veining on it like you would do with like I've done in some of my other videos. When you're doing life-size roses, they look a lot better if you're doing a sample rose. If you can get the veining into the petals as well, they look even more realistic. The only problem with doing an all-in-one rose is that it's very difficult to vein it with a veiner because it's meant for individual petals. Don't forget, if anybody's got any questions about anything, you can always leave me a message in the comments, or you can go to my page on Facebook and message me there if it's something more complicated. Some of my people that follow my channel do message me on there. And I've got a very small handful of people that do message me, so it'd be nice to hear from a lot more of you as to your experience, how you've got on with what I've demonstrated in the video, what you think about the videos, anything that you'd like to see me do as well. This is why I'm doing this video, because it's a question that's been asked by one of my subscribers. Don't think I'm going to get that any thinner here. As you can see, I've got something underneath the paste there that I've picked up, and you can see the that through the paste. That's how thin you want it to be. So we'll start off with the first one. One of those. Oh, I think I'll get them all out. One of those. One of those. And one of those. And if I take my paste away, there we are, there's all my pieces. So this, just 4 cuts there, is going to do a full rose. I have done another video on this, but I'm just covering this again just to explain why you need to use all the different sizes of cutters you've got in your set. So if you just get those off of there and onto my foam pad. Put that one up there. Then I can put the big one in there, like that. I think I've got another. There it is. I'm going to use my sugar centre because they stick a lot better to these rather than using the polybudge. You can use those, but as I say, I would put your first layer on and let that dry. Oh, it's there. So start off by thinning your edges in the normal way. I could probably use a smaller ball tool than this. Just try to avoid getting your petals stuck together when you're doing this. That's one. Because the petals curve up, this is why I always turn the paste over when I've done this, because then when you're shaping your petals are going in the right direction. If that makes sense. It'll make more sense when I turn it over, so that you know what I'm getting at here. If anybody's tried the flexible flower paste, let me know how you've got on with it. The advantage with this paste, although it's not quite as flexible as I would like it to be, but I am going to experiment with the mixture to see if I can get it even more flexible. And I will come up with that in any further videos when I do them, if I get to that stage. Might even call it super flexible. What was I going to say? I've forgotten what I was going to say then. Yeah, let me know how you've got on with it. One or two people have got back to me and let me know how they're dealing with it. So it'd be nice to hear from some more of you. Be nice to see what you do with it as well. I mean, there's no reason why you can't send me pictures, because you can send me them if you go to my page, Terry Hatfield, on Facebook, either that or Terrific Cake Design, and show me your pictures on there. So it'd be nice to see if people have had good results with anything that they've learnt from me, you know. So I'm going to get my wire into the bottom. What I haven't done is to glue it, so I'll just glue those. I'm not sure whether this is going to be too small. I might have made this bud might be too big. Yes, it is. Can't do it on that one. Right. That's not going to work. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to quickly make a centre a lot smaller. Use some of this paste in here. I'm using normal flour paste here for this. Just get this working. We've got a 20 gauge wire over there. Yep, that one will do. I always put roses on the 20 gauge wire, but if you're doing a life size rose, I would suggest you probably might be better off going up to an 18 gauge wire for that, because it's going to be heavier because it's much bigger. Even though I've used a polybud, I always use polybuds for life size roses. No point in making it in flour paste because it's just far too heavy. So I'm going to start off with a small ball of paste, and then roll that into a cone and put my wire into that. Don't matter if it's a bit tatty, even though, as long as it's just try that one, see if that's any better. I might have to stretch the paste up a little bit to fit it, but yeah, I am. I'm just going to stretch that up. No, it's too big. That's much too big. So I'm going to take some of that paste off and then thin that down again. Right, now it should fit. It's not going to quite cover it all, so I'm just going to have to stretch that up a little bit. I've gone off camera again, haven't I? I always forget to look up at the camera to see. Then bring your other side up, facing it, stretch that up, and bring that round. In fact, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do away with that one, because we only really need 3 layers anyway. I'm just going to get rid of that, and I'm going to start off with this one, which is the next smallest one. That's better, much better. Right, so just glue all those. Now your first one at this side wants to be glued all over, and then I would say pick one of those on that side and glue that all over as well. So if you bring that up, then your other ones want to be about 1/3. That's better. I just have to be careful because this isn't dry, so just bring that one up, facing that, and bring that up and round the other way. Just do it with my other hand. They just take a bit of fiddling about with, do these, when you're doing anything so small. I mean, if I was doing then you bring your other ones up the same and they cross over where they cross over. Then that one wants to come up there. If they don't overlap, don't worry too much about it. Neaten it round the bottom. Then we go on to the next layer. So again, we're going to just glue half of the petals on these. Into the centre of that one. And then bring that down. Tuck that side round. Overlap with that one. Overlap with that one. Overlap with that one. And that goes over there and under the first one. Just the same as you would do with any other rows. Then just get your hand underneath it just to bring them all up like that. So that's that stage, and then you can curve your petals back, same as you would normally do. I would normally spend a lot more time on this if I was doing them this way, because I'm just doing this just to demonstrate the difference between the wrong paste, that's that one there. Right, so glue half of that. And then into your centre again, and make sure that your petals are in between the first layer. So bring that one up, tuck it in on one side, cross over. I suppose in some ways this is a little bit easier than using individual petals, because your petals are already side by side. So they more or less fall into place. If you do it upside down like I'm doing here, they just fall into the right position, don't they? It's going to go underneath that one. So there we have a miniature rose. Now I can show you there on the back, the bottom is no bigger than it was when I started off, if you look at it that way. And that's because you've got your paste thin enough. With the other roses, then obviously you start with your petals higher up, which you can't do with an all-in-one rose. And then when you get to this stage, let that dry, and then you can add your calyx onto it. So you've got a nice little miniature rose there. Okay? So I'm just going to bend that down and stick that into there, like that. And then of course with the other cutters, these I've got here, these are for doing, well, they're calling it the whatever rose, I've forgotten the name. But it's not the make of a rose, it's actually the grower of these. And you do exactly the same thing with these as you do with the plain cutters. Most people start off with the plain cutter, but now we didn't have these available when I first started. These are a fairly new type of cutter now that everybody's bringing out. I hope that's answered some of your questions about getting your backs of your roses thinner. And if you've got any questions about anything that I've just covered in this, then please do get back to me, and I'll get back to you and fill you in on whatever it is that you think you've missed. So there we are, that's the end of this quick video. So take care, stay safe, and see you soon.